Hello, Nick family. Welcome to the Queen's Court. I'm your host, Stephanie, aka Queen, and as always, we have a lot to talk about. The Knicks are 0-3 over their last three games. Still three more games left on this West Coast trip. Brunson is out with an injury. We'll talk about, how that impacts the team, who needs to step up, what are some things we can do individually and as a team schematically in his absence. We'll talk a bit about the signing of PJ Tucker. How significant is that? Is that just a locker room signing? Will he be, a part of the rotation? And then we'll also talk about how the offense has plummeted. And I don't think that I'm overstating that since the All-Star break, albeit it's only 9 games, but we went from a elite, almost historic offense, right, before the All-Star break to these last 9 games being ranked in the bottom 10, as far as, at offensive metrics. Let's put it that way. The defense has been better in those 9 games. I think we're ranked 14th just as far as defensive rating is. There are other metrics that go into your defense in the 9 games since the All-Star break, but our net rating is negative 7.5. So not good as we head into the stretch, into the playoffs. What looks to be a matchup with the Detroit Pistons, maybe the Atlantic Hawks. If they're able to overtake Detroit or we're unable to hold on to that to the third seed, I think we're 4.5 games ahead of Milwaukee right now. Anyway, let me bring in the crew. Let's bring in Lady and the Chef as well. So we got Geoff from the Happily Ever Klafter Daily Sports blog. Check him out. That link is in the description. He's a great, great writer. And then you can also see him Thursdays on the Just Nickin' It show on my channel, Dope Soul Sports Talk, where he also gives great insights. Ajay the villain is here in place of Tony Crowe. Shout out to Tony, who's not able to make it today. And then, of course, Lady and the Chef from Two Knicks Chicks. The link to her channel is in the description as well. So be sure to check them out in her and Diva 21, and as well as subscribe to the channel. Geoff, welcome back. Happy anniversary again. We missed you last week on the Queen's Court and the Just Nickin' It Weekly Show, so appreciate you. Yeah, how's everyone
put up with
doing?
me for 25 years. I at least owe her a trip out of the country. She's my rock. She's lets me do this twice a week. I've got no complaints. We had a great time, and I'm just glad to be back.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of love there because you went during the Knicks season. So
that's right. It takes a lot.
Yeah, Lady and the Chef, how are you?
I'm good. I was talking to Diva Locks. I said, let me get off this phone. I said, it's 7:39. We over here chomping. I said, yo, Steph is waiting on me. So I'm happy to be here. It's good to see everybody here today on a Monday.
All right. Ajay, you doing all right? Oh, yeah, you're muted.
Muted,
You know,
boss.
Ajay always starting off on the wrong foot.
I know.
Coming in late.
No, I was here early today. Always, always a pleasure to be here with you guys talking about the Knicks. And Queen, I'm not here in place of Tony Crowe. I can't replace Tony Crowe, but I'm just here to, I don't know, just riding along. But it's always fun talking about the Knicks, whether it's here or on the Dope Soul channel on Thursdays like we normally do. Yeah. Or when Lady and the Chef decides to throw like a little invitation once every 6 months, I have no problem popping on there. But she's real stingy with it, but whatever.
Lady and Diva hold it down. They don't need any help.
I know.
They got it on lock.
I gotta get better at putting the link in the It's funny because what's his name? Jay Boogie was just telling me that. He said, "Oh, put the link," and I put it. He came in through the live, but no, I have to start putting it in the chat so that way you
Yeah.
guys can see it in our
Oh,
group chat.
yeah. I be
Yeah, I just assume you just want to rock by yourself. That's cool.
No,
Ain't nothing wrong
I
with
don't.
that.
I be needing
and
people because
but
Diva Locks be leaving me hanging.
Queen, the worst part, she be, even when Diva Lux is not there, she all by herself and holding it down. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh my
I see
god,
that.
I don't know, me in there probably would have messed up her flow, you know, because she
No,
just like going and going and going. I'm like, I didn't want to mess that up.
no, you guys are always welcome.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, I wanted to start with Brunson's injury. I almost forgot that we actually had a few games. I feel like Brunson's injury is so on my mind. I forgot. Whoa, we had 3 games since last week. Lost all 3. Golden State, the Lakers, and the Clippers. If I'm not, if I'm not mistaken. Um, let's just quickly go through. Go through. I don't know what you've seen over those past 3 games, and you can mention Brunson and some other things, but we'll definitely do a deep dive into it. Geoff, you probably weren't able to catch any of the games, correct?
I didn't get to watch them, but excuse me, I can't stay away very long. And I think I wrote recaps about at least 2 of them.
Okay.
I know for the Laker game because that was super disappointing to have a 10-point lead and you just let it evaporate in the fourth quarter. As the last 6 or 7 minutes is super frustrating. But yeah, there's this. We just can't seem to get the right mix right now. It just seems like, excuse me, we're a little bit off kilter. And now with Brunson out, we're going to be tested. I mean, we have a lot of good players. It's time for them to step up. I think we saw some of that from McCall in the Clippers game, but again, we had a nightmarish fourth quarter where we couldn't score any points, which is becoming a disturbing trend. And I'm not necessarily sure where that comes from. I don't think we get the ball to Karl-Anthony Towns early in the shot clock enough. I think we need probably more paint touches for him. And just a chance to get easy baskets, because it just seems like when it gets to crunch time, he's not touching the ball a lot, and we're just struggling to get opportunities. And even when we get opportunities, it seems like the guys who are getting them are reluctant to take them. In the key spots, Josh Hart in particular has been frustrating in that regard of late. I kind of feel like there's a Celtics fan out there with a monkey's paw who's like, oh, they want Josh Hart they want Miles McBride to start. Okay, well, wish granted. Brunson goes down, and all of a sudden Deuce is in the starting lineup, but not in the role that we intended, because he's not a point guard. And so
Right.
I'm actually curious to see if you had Cam in the starting lineup to soak up those point guard responsibilities, if it might not be a little bit better, because that's not something that Deuce does well for the most part. And I'm not sure there's anybody else in the starting lineup who really takes on that responsibility efficiently. So I'm kind of curious about that. And Kolek, I don't even think was with the team in the last game. So our options were certainly limited there. We're going to struggle without Brunson, though. I mean, that's just, he's a top 5 player in the league, in my opinion, for a reason. So, any team is without one of their best five players in the league is going to suffer. Right now, the key is just to not let the boat sink. Keep plugging along, keep that margin for the 3rd seed, so we can go into the playoffs with a favorable matchup at home, and just try and hopefully, they said he's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks, which to me means he's probably likely out at least 4, which means you're kind of pushing toward the end of the regular season and into the playoffs, which, if he's not available for the playoffs, that's a complete disaster. So just kind of holding my breath and praying that he doesn't rush back, but that he gets back to 100% in time. Because if he does, and he's rested and healthy, it could be a blessing in disguise. But we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah, to your point, and we will talk about it later. I'm not sure if McBride doesn't. I'm wondering if Bridges, though, to your point, is not Jalen Brunson, if he would be better on the ball, initiating our offense, and that way you could still keep McBride in the starting lineup playing off the ball. Or to your point, I was thinking about this before the show, Geoff. If you're not going to do that, do you lean into campaign? I do think that you need to have somebody who can create for themselves and create for them and for others at that position. And listen, we've seen Bridges in Boston, and listen, he's not a number one option, right? He played that role where he was creating for himself, creating for others. He wasn't always great, but I think behind Brunson, he's our best option. So, all right, we'll talk more about it. Ajay, then Lady and the Chef, anything about these 3 games you want to talk about?
I defer to Lady. Lady, go first.
All right, go ahead, Lady and the Chef.
Yeah, for me, the biggest thing that I noticed was the offense was stagnant. The Knicks were going nowhere. Um, and I spoke about this before where I said that the Knicks need another guy, a player like Jalen Brunson who can create his own no matter what defense is facing him, is in front of him. The Knicks don't have another player like Brunson who can get to the basket at his own will and impose his will. We don't have that. We have the shooting on lock. You got Bridges, you have OG, you have Josh Hart, you have Payne, but those guys can't do what he can do as far as footwork, ball handling skills, taking a player one-on-one, getting to the basket, creating a foul. We don't have that. So a lot of that falls on his shoulders, which is why he's pivotal in clutch moments for us or getting us back in games. And occasionally, I guess you could say maybe at times you can get Cat to do that at times where he can drive to the basket, but they don't really have that. And then watching these 3 games, to me, the effort wasn't there as much as we saw when the Knicks won the previous 2 games. So I think the Knicks, and I heard you say this before, Queen, I think the Knicks are missing that gritty toughness. It comes in, it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that some nights you're going to be off, you're not going to be on as a team, but the Knicks got to get tougher. Some nights they look a little too soft. Some nights they look very confused offensively and defensively. And I have to say, as somebody who's been very at the forefront about complaining about the defense, I think the defense has been looking better. I will say that. But I think collectively as a whole, the Knicks sometimes, it's like they allow teams to force them out of their patterns. Not even so much good habits, but out of their patterns. They allow defenses to dictate what they're going to do. They allow defense to make them to take a quick shot, quick two passes, and then they just chuck up a shot. Now they got to go hustle back down. And it's just like, when you really watch the offense in those 3 losses, what other options do the Knicks have to go to? And I agree with Geoff. Cat doesn't get the ball enough. This was an issue the previous few games as well. He's not really getting the touches. But when you have a guy like Bridges who's playing on the sidelines, the only other person I really saw that was playing with grit and intensity is OG. But everyone else is kind of like we're playing like to the side. And it's like, okay, they're playing almost like, well, we got 2-3 superstars already or guys who's going to get it. And I'm going to just play and be, you know what I mean? I'm playing on the sidelines along with you. And I went on a rant, I know we're going to talk about this. There was talk and people were saying in the chat, the Knicks were looking at, this is before the whole PJ Tucker, the Knicks were looking at bringing back Taj. Why? Then you could have kept Sims. I'm glad they didn't do that. But I think even if I don't care who you bring here. I said this when we got back Mitchell Robinson. One guy is not going to make the difference. Can he create an energy in the atmosphere that can become infectious? Absolutely. But is that going to stick? And is that going to be on a consistent basis? It's up to these guys to do it. So, and then even if you do bring in whoever you bring in, is Tibbs going to give him enough minutes for him to be able to prove himself in the game? But a lot of what I saw was the lack of effort. I saw there was no other option offensively who you can really go to. You don't really have the point guard who can give you the skill set like Brunson, who can orchestrate the offense, facilitate the passes. Yeah, he may not get a bunch of assists, but it's a difference in the way that he facilitates the ball and he's orchestrating the ball on offense. And I didn't see that. So where do this team go moving forward until you get him back as an option of, okay, we can give him the ball? Because right now, to me, they need to play team basketball. They need to move the ball. Guys need to cut. You can't just, okay, we're going to give it to OG and he can work his magic. We're going to give it to Cat, let him do his thing. That's not going to work. I'm going to tell you that right now. That passing it to one guy and letting him do what he needs to do, Bridges do, it's not going to work. It's going to get shut down. It may keep you in the game, but then eventually you'll lose the lead and it's not going to work. So I just didn't see any offensive direction, defensively as well, but offensive direction, it was so stagnant.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's with and without Brunson, in my opinion.
Right.
And so we're going to talk about Brunson's injury, but we're also going to talk about just the difference in the offense before the All-Star break, when there was a lot of ball movement, a lot of player movement, a lot of spacing, and what it's been like these past 9 games after the All-Star break. Short sample size, but just going from being a top 3 team offensively in the NBA to now being a bottom 5 team offensively in the NBA since the All-Star break, and what's been going on. But let's, Ajay has his time, and then we'll choose between we're gonna talk about Brunson's injury or the offense. But I think it doesn't matter. Ajay.
Well, Queen, you mentioned that the offenses at time seem without direction with or without Brunson. Well, I agree with that. The difference is with Brunson, we have that safety valve of Jalen Brunson we could go to, who could make things worse. I mean, he's great one-on-one. He's clutch. He's pretty much unstoppable most of the time. He's a hell of a scorer. But without him, we don't have that, right? Um, the his gravity also, he attracts double teams, he attracts players. We don't have that, so now everybody's responsible to do your own stuff, create your own shot. We don't have shot creators on the team. I mean, think about it. Who can create? Who could stand there, create their own shot? Not too many. Not too many guys can do that. And we were talking about this earlier. OG Anunoby, if he's not shooting a 3-pointer or a mid-range, or he's cutting under the basket for a dunk, if you give him the ball and like more than 2 seconds go by, we're in trouble, because he's driving, coming out of his shoe the other day, like he's slipping and sliding. I mean, it's a mess without Jalen Brunson. That doesn't mean we can't win games, because these guys are very talented. They could find a way to score, but I mean, we're not gonna be playing above 500. I don't think we are gonna be able to play above 500 basketball, especially with the kind of schedule that we have without Jalen Brunson to guide this team. And it's not so much that. And I know a lot of people say Jalen Brunson, he doesn't pass the ball and so on and so forth, which I don't agree with. It depends on what the game he does, what the game calls for. But the fact that you don't have him allows other teams to just one-on-one. You know how we've had problem with the zone. Right now we have the same problem with one-on-one without the zone. We're like stuck, and listen. We move the ball. We don't move it right, because how many times we watched those last 2 games, and when with 3 seconds on the shot clock, the ball ends up in Josh Hart, the one guy you don't want the ball in his hand, with 3 seconds left, and he's the one with the ball.
That's a testament to the defense, though. I don't know if that's the defense is rotating and forcing you. You either going to take a bad shot or you're going to pass it to the open guy. And so if they're rotating well and consistently and continually, you got to keep moving it, until it winds up in the
Josh
hands of
Hart's hand.
somebody like Josh Hart. I'm thinking specifically the Boston game, where the first 5 possessions seemed like it ended up in Josh Hart, OG, in OG's hands. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's tough. Like I said, when it's not that doesn't mean we're not gonna win games, but we're just not gonna be as efficient of a team as we were. Those down the stretch games where you could squeak out a 1, 2 point, 3 point win, those are gonna be hard to come by without. I mean, look at the Lakers game. I mean, that's a game we had no business losing that game. But you know,
I mean, listen, you can argue that if Brunson doesn't go down, we win that game. As clutch as he is. And I know it's easy to say, oh, you shouldn't, you should be able to hold on to a lead. It's the NBA. Teams come back. You know.
actually, yeah. But when he went down, we didn't even have the lead when that we're on our way back because we had lost the lead at that point. So,
Okay.
but hey, listen,
But
I
it
mean,
was
we
close,
just
though. I mean, we had an
yeah, it was close.
opportunity to win the game, um, going in that last possession before overtime. And listen, I'm not gonna profess to know a lot about NBA offenses, and I'm not going to say that I have all of the factors that Tom Thibodeau has when he's making a decision about what play to draw up. Obviously, he's drawn on more than I am sitting at home, but I did not understand why Miles McBride was the point guard on that play. I personally would have liked to have seen him off the ball and maybe Bridges initiating that offense. The play broke down because I know the play wasn't to allow the clock to run out and and Miles McBride go one on one and try to create a shot. Like I know that wasn't the play. It broke down somewhere along the way. But if the ball is in Bridges' hands and the play breaks down, at least you have somebody who can get off a decent shot,
Mhm.
right off the dribble. So usually coming out of timeouts, we're really good. I didn't quite understand that one, but again, I'm pretty sure there was a reason for that decision to have McBride, initiate um, that last play. Then we go into overtime, and you know, we just didn't have enough. Without our best player.
No, that was the overtime. That was the last play with Deuce McBride.
Okay.
Because in regulation, the
Yeah,
ball
yeah, yeah,
ended up
yeah,
in Josh Hart,
yeah.
and he,
Yes.
he
Well, what
shot.
they did was they doubled Brunson high, and Hart got the ball, and it was really 4-on-3, and so nobody really came to the ball. He just needs to get that shot off quicker. I mean, he
Right.
made the basket, but he made it a second too late. He's got to have that internal clock in his head and get that shot off quicker. But again, that's not necessarily so. I mean, he's actually on the season pretty good in those late shot clock situations about making it. His percentage is a lot higher than you would think. But it's a copycat league, and I think that other
Mhm.
teams kind of saw how the Boston Celtics guard us, and they're like, "Oh, we're just going to put a small forward with a little bit of size on Cat and guard him out at the perimeter, and we're going to put our big on Josh Hart, and we're going to dare Josh Hart to. We know Josh Hart is not going to score more than 20 points against us, and so." If he goes nuts and he goes wild, you live with that, but it allows you to double more easily against Brunson. And, it doesn't eliminate Towns as a threat, but he gets less touches unless you're putting him on the block and taking advantage of the mismatch. And for whatever reason, the Knicks don't do that a whole lot. And so I feel like that teams have kind of picked up on that because that's the coverage that we're seeing almost on a nightly basis now. And it's one of the reasons where we've been one of the worst. I think we've been the worst team in the league in catch and shoot 3-pointers over the last 15 games. And that's a major reason why. And that's one of the reasons why our offense is stagnating too, because
Right.
those types of shots are the bread and butter of the modern NBA offense. And when we're getting less of those opportunities than the Magic right now. And yeah, we haven't shot great in this last stretch, but we do have, Josh Hart's not a good shooter, but we do have a lot of good shooters, especially from the corners. We're just not getting them the ball in that situation enough.
Yeah. I'm going back and forth to let's go into the offense. We'll get back to Brunson's injury and how that impacts us, particularly as we talk about the rest of the West Coast trip we have coming up. But I do want to talk about the offense a little bit. Let me just put this up here. Hold on. Huh. I'm trying to get all four of us on here. I'm not sure what's going on here. Wait. And there we go. Yeah, so I want to talk about the offense. So pre-All-Star break, 54 games, post-All-Star break, only 9 games, right? Small sample size. But if you see our offensive rating pre-All-Star, we were second in the league in points per 100 possessions at 119.9. Defense was 18th in the league, giving up 113.9 points per 100 possessions. But our net rating was plus 6.5. Post All-Star break, we're now 28th in offensive, well, during those 9 games, I should say. 28th in offensive rating, scoring just 106.3 points per 100. I had to double check that. And if somebody wants to triple check that, because I was like, is that really true? Defensive rating, 14th, but still giving up the same, pretty much 13.8 points per 100 possessions. And our net rating is negative 7.5. The question I'm trying to figure out now, ask you three and anybody in the chat who wants to chime in, and of course the replay gang, what do you think has been the difference between the offense pre and post All-Star game? If you remember before the All-Star game, those 30 assist games, the spacing, the ball movement, the player movement, the cutting. And then now, since the All-Star game, a very Brunson-centric offense where he's creating for himself, creating for others. What do you think has been the change in the offense? Lady&TheChef, will start with you, then Ajay, and then Geoff.
I think for me, the most notable change, the Knicks, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. The Knicks they tend to move away from what works. You'll have guys moving, cutting to the basket, and then they move away from that. And I think the Knicks started off the season a little rough and bumpy, and then they were able to find their footing, and they figured out how to play together. And the ball movement, they were sharing the ball, moving the ball a lot more. And now you're absolutely right. It's heavily Jalen Brunson running the offense, running a point. And I don't think it's necessarily because there's a lack of trust. I think Brunson just knows that there's no one else on that team who can get them a bucket, whether clutch time or not, like he can. So it's like, well, what option do I have? Yeah, I could pass it to Mikal. Yeah, and Mikal needs to seem like he wants the ball anyway. He likes playing on the sideline. He needs to be an acquirer the way that he plays. But yeah, he could pass it to him. He could get it to OG. OG can get you a basket. You can get it to Cat. Cat can give you a ball fake and either do a step back, hit the 3, or drive to the basket. But I just feel like there seems to be a disconnect. And for me, I think just looking at these stats here, pre-All-Star and post-All-Star, granted, it's only been 9 games, but that's more than enough to look at. There seems to be a reversal going on here. And if you ask me, Tibbs needs to come to the front of the line as well, because as a coach, and along with your assistant coaches, you must be looking at these trend lines of your stats and what's going on with this team. You must be looking at the film to say, you know what, we gotta regroup. This is what I need from you. And then you got to know how to adjust when you don't have a player like Brunson in the game. I saw a few people bring up a valid player like Kolek. I kept saying this at the beginning of the season. This is why you have to give certain guys the minutes, because last year should have been a lesson learned from last year when we had all the injuries, the man down situation. So because Tibbs didn't give certain guys, which we didn't really have so much of the talent rookie wise like we do this season, but I kept saying this is why you got to give guys like Porty minutes. Yeah, it's all, I get Tibbs. He's very much stay ready, stay ready, stay ready. But if you don't allow the players to get in the game, to make the mistakes in real game situations, not just the practice, they're not going to learn. They're not going to be ready for when you have Jalen Brunson out, for when you have an OG out. So Kolick would be a good player to bring in and allow him to work his magic. I'm not saying to give him all the minutes in the world. Sure, Campaign has a lot more experience than him, but he can learn just the same way you took a chance on Deuce coming in the game. So I just think that a lot of what I'm seeing just by looking at this chart that you have up, there seems to be a reversal going on. And this is a big issue offensively. We know defensively the issues that the Knicks have, but I think if we really look at the root of the problem, Jalen Brunson being out, I think this is a good thing for the Knicks front office to say, because there's a weakness here on this team. And it's not just the center position. We're talking about, we don't really have guys who can get you a bucket. So I think this to me, this is something that is going to open eyes up to the front office staff. And I think this chart is specifically, it proves exactly what's going on here. There's a weakness here in the offense.
Right. But why though? Like, that wasn't the case early on. Now, all of a sudden, here we are. We have the same cast of characters, because we were trending this way even before Brunson hurt his ankle,
But I think guys also we've had the case of certain guys having the blues where they've been in a slump. OG, Mikel, Deuce, because of injuries or illnesses, and they've been kind of up and down, so it's like, it's very unpredictable. You've had in the beginning, it was heavy Cat, it was heavy JB. They were carrying the load with contributions from other guys on selective nights, right? But I think that guys being in an up and down spurts, or like, Mikel's been kind of in and out. He'll give you one good game of 20 to 28 points, and then he has the next 3 games where you may get 5, you may get 10, 12 points from him, but then he's kind of quiet. And we had that from OG's been picking up, but he had a slump like that. This is before the foot injury where he was up and down. But I think, again, the lack of, like, when they found that rhythm, they went away from that. But again, that's why I say, when you look at Tibbs, like, yo, you don't notice that the team is moving away from that rhythm that they had, and you're not saying, yo, I need y'all to get back to this. Like, we've lost our identity. We found it. We were figuring out who we were, and it seems we lost our identity. So, and I think that's a great question. Like, why is it happening? I'm not sure exactly why, but I'm pinpointing out these reasonings because these are what I'm noticing.
Right. Ajay, your thoughts on what you think the difference is between our offense early on and since the All-Star break?
Queen, I mean, to be honest, I'm just as baffled as Lady and the Chef. I don't know why it's happening. But when you look at the games, I mean, and I'm gonna talk about this before Brunson went out. Like, let's forget about the games we played,
because the offense was the same, even
it
with
was right.
with
So,
Brunson.
well, I mean, now it's a little bit worse, but no, it is, because there's definitely no direction now. But I think well, I didn't hear the podcast, but I've heard people mention that on the podcast. Brunson and Hart, they were talking about how Tibbs pretty much let him do what they want to do. Like Lady and the Chef was saying, as a coach, you're not getting paid to just let guys do what they want to do. You getting paid to manage this team. So you got to kind of guide the ship and determine the direction that this team is taking, right? So at some point, if you letting them play the way they want to play, and it's slipping, you realize that it's no longer working, you got to come up with different stuff. As the coaching staff, there's like 50 people on that bench over there getting paid as coaches. They need to come up with something. They need to to hit the lab, look at the videos, look at go to the drawing board and figure out, with the talent that you have, how to make it work. Right now, they're not doing that. And, you throw in there now, Brunson's hurt, so it's going to be even worse. Like, I don't even know what they're going to do. Could be better.
In the sense of more, you don't really have him to lean on in terms of ball movement, player movement. But yeah.
But so you know what? So far, it hasn't worked out. So let's see what happens tonight. But and one of the things, and I don't, you have there's a group, there are people who would, it's everything's Tibbs, it's Tibbs' fault. You know, at some point, the players got to take some blame also. And Queen, I don't defend Tibbs. Listen, if he gets fired, I'm not going to shed a tear. You know that. He's not my favorite. But at some point, you got to look at the player. The players got to, they got to put in the work. They got to put in the effort. They got to show the energy. They got to hit those shots. They got to play defense. They got to do the stuff. Yes, Tibbs, he's got to put the players in position to win, in position to get something going. But the players also, they got to deliver, because there are times where those guys are actually passing on good shot for something more difficult, or Josh Hart, listen, if you don't shoot the ball, it has 0 chance of going in. If you shoot it, you probably have a 30% chance of it going in, whatever your accuracy is. The players got to understand that. It can't be you playing a team and then there's one guy that they feel free to leave him open. Even Precious Achua, he shoots the ball like he works up the nerves and shoots the ball whenever he gets a chance. I need Joshua to do the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Stop passing on these shots. I mean, to me, it's kind of embarrassing. It's frustrating as a fan to see that other teams are leaving this guy open because they know, not that they know he can't hit it, they know he's not going to shoot it at all. So that's why they leave it open. So you got to step in and fill in the role. You down one guy, everybody's got to step up. I could see the effort from Mikal Bridges. It wasn't great. Even Deuce was 2 for 9. I'm okay with that. He's not going to be 2 for 9 every game, but at least he's shooting the ball. He's trying. That's what you want to see. You want to see you try, certain things. And Cat's got to be, he's got to understand. I don't know if we talk about this or later. These guys got to do what they're comfortable with. Like the coaching staff got to let them understand what works for them. I don't want to see OG Anunoby drive the ball. You got to tell them that in the huddle. Say, OG, don't drive.
You can't tell the player that.
And why would you tell OG not to drive though? That I'm so.
You got to read the defense. If the defense is closing out, you got to drive.
Well, but if like I said, if you're open for 2 seconds, take the shot, because he is a good shooter. That's what I'm saying. He's a good shooter. So if he's got a 2-second window, that's his shooting is that's a better. He has a better chance of hitting the shot than him driving. We've seen him drive. Okay.
What's his drive percentage? Do we know what his drive percentage is? Like his percentage of completing, like turnovers off drives, completion off drives. I mean,
because he can cut. OG Anunoby, he's a great cutter. When he's under the bat, he cuts under the basket. Like he's probably one of our best cutters on the team. Have him do that a little more.
You got to have space to cut though. And I think that's part of the issue with the offense since the post All-Star break. That spacing we had at the beginning of the season is just not there.
I don't understand how. Like why isn't it there?
I mean, I'm gonna let Geoff go before I give my thoughts on what I think is going on as far as the offense is concerned. Unless Geoff might leave me a little meat on the bone, Geoff.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So I think the context of these 9 games is kind of important too, because I don't think for a lot of that game, I feel like a lot of these games, I feel like we've been missing one key component to the puzzle, whether that be OG being out, Towns has missed a game or 2, Brunson was out a game.
Hart, 2 games over since the All-Star break, after the All-Star break, if I'm not mistaken.
So it seems like anytime that we have to play a lot of Precious Achua, and I'm not trying to pick on him, but he's not really an offensive threat. I mean, he'll shoot a 3-pointer every once in a while, but teams are like, yeah, go ahead. Like if it goes in, I'll tip my cap to that, whatever. And, and so if you have a lot of lineups with Precious and Josh Hart together on the floor, for example, that's going to be a decent defensive lineup. And I think, we're seeing some of that, but it's a nightmare on offense because you have two guys on the floor that you absolutely don't have to guard at all. Like, I mean, you could just say, go ahead, pretty much do what you want to. I mean, Josh Hart plays at his best when he's with Karl Anthony Towns. That's the combination that works the best. Correct. And in fact, I would make the argument that if Towns isn't on the floor, I don't want to see Josh Hart on the floor either. I think that you have to keep that combo together. And if you're to pull in Towns, I think McBride should come in for Hart and find some other combination that works to get you the rebounding you need. Maybe, with Robinson back, maybe you can do that a little bit more too as he gears up. I don't think he's been terrible, but he's, he isn't in game shape yet either, but I think he's a nice addition and he's going to help some. But looking at the percentages, I find it staggering that they're 5% field goal percentage drop and an almost 7% 3-point percentage drop. I mean, and it's never as simple as, well, they're just not making shots. And that's not the argument that I'm trying to make, but I think we're getting less quality shots because of the lineups that we're being forced to play, because we're not whole. Like when we had that second ranked offense, we had the best health among our starting five in the league. And it's that starting five unit that really puts the pressure on people. And when we've had to plug in different parts, whether it be Landry Shamet or Precious Achua or, insert player's name here off the bench and elevate them to a starter, it hasn't looked the same. Or just giving them a lot of minutes, it hasn't looked the same for whatever reason. And now we're not even seeing that starting five together. And so you're seeing those problems that kind of leaked in when the bench was in the game pretty much all game long. And the last thing I'll say before I want to leave some meat on the bone for you, this kind of reminds me of the offense of the last couple of years without the elite offensive rebounding.
In what sense?
We missed a lot of shots. Like those teams were missing a lot. Remember, the Knicks
would post All-Star break.
I'm talking about previous seasons. Like this stretch, this last 9 games is like the teams that had iHeart and Mitch.
Yes.
But instead of getting a bunch of offensive rebounds, we're getting fewer offensive rebounds than we were. And so it really exacerbates it. It really looks bad because we're not winning the possession battle plus 10 possessions to make up the difference for our lack of good shooting. And so that's what it seems like to me. So, I mean, that's the only thing I can kind of put my finger on that what's different is the lineups have been a little bit different. The shooting hasn't been as good, and the offensive rebounding and the turnovers, we're not getting as many possessions to compensate for really just having a bad shooting stretch, like worst shooting stretch of the season.
Yeah. Well said. What I will add to that is I wonder also if Cat, if he still has some lingering injuries with the thumb, with the knee, because I noticed that even when he is in the game, we're no longer playing him at the top of the key a lot. I'm not saying he's never there, but that really, really helped our spacing. And, sometimes you just see him basically, I don't know, baseline extended pretty much, even when Brunson is in the game. So early in the season, he would be at the top of the key. Him and Brunson would be operating at the top of the key. Now I see Brunson operating at the top of the key and he's lower. I'm not sure what that's, what's that about? Me and Ajay was talking earlier and he was saying that this is the most usage Cat has had, in a few years. So is he worn down because of it? Is his knee too sore to be at the top of the key, driving? But the spacing is definitely different. And Josh Hart, who was at one point, I think, leading the league in 2-point field goal percentage. I think a lot of that was the spacing that Cat provided for us and just how he was able to operate in the key. And that space is just not there. I mean, the space is there, but it's definitely tighter than it was before. OG used to duck into the key and get the post up for a little bit. Like all of that, the cutting is gone. And on top of that, to your point, Geoff, Josh Hart just being much more hesitant than he was early in the season. Early in the season, he was just letting it fly. I noticed, I don't know what was the Clipper game. Your shot starts before you even get the ball. Like if you're one pass away and you know that defense is not going to be able to rotate in time, your hand is already up waiting for the pass ready to shoot. So now he gets the ball. Now he's looking around. Then he's nobody. Oh, let me shoot. No, the opportunity has passed. You should have known. You know that you have a shot before the ball even gets to you. So, I do think I think that's part of it. But I do wonder if Cat is just hurt because at this point, he's we talk about him not getting touches in the fourth quarter or not getting touches in the post. I'm surprised at the end of the game when I see he even took 15 shots. I said, really? He took 15? Like, it just looks like he's an appendage to the offense, like, all right, you get it, you don't. And the problem I'm having now, not necessarily the first half of the season before the All-Star break, a little bit then too, but more so now, is we're not maximizing each player in terms of what they can bring to this offense. We're not maximizing Cat right now. Early in this season, we did. I don't think we've ever maximized Bridges, in my opinion. OG, maybe we're maximizing him, maybe not. He goes through these dynamic stretches where he looks all world, and then he goes, clock strikes 12, and then he's somebody else. I just don't think we're maximizing the players. And I agree with you, Ajay. I'm not going to get on Tibbs and say he's not an off, because you can't beat him up for what's happening over these 9 games, but not give him credit over what happened the first 54. Like, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work that way. But I will say, for as much credit that at least I'm giving him for designing a scheme that allow Karl-Anthony Towns to shine, whatever is going on now, whether he's injured, whatever, now it's time to design another scheme, particularly with Brunson out, where we can now take more advantage of guys who maybe didn't have that opportunity with Brunson. He's not here now. There's an opportunity, right? So I think, well, I guess that's the next question. What would you like to see? What do you think would help this offense along now that Jalen Brunson is going to be out for the next 2 weeks, even more? Ajay, then Lady&TheChef, then Geoff. Then Geoff, then Lady&TheChef.
First thing I would do, Queen. I don't know. I'd really look at not starting Deuce at the point. And not because, Deuce is great. He's been one of our best players this season. Yeah, a little bit inconsistent every now and then, but I would probably consider starting. I don't know. I don't know. Campaign is the other option, I guess you'd have to look at. But anyway, I would try to design the offense. I would run the offense to Cat pretty much, like kind of like we did back in the days in the 90s, run it through the big man. I would try to do that, especially when we play teams. This is another thing I didn't mention a little while ago. We play teams that don't have big men that could guard him, and we don't take advantage of that. And when we do play teams with guys that can guard him down low, he can shoot the 3, draw him out. take him outside. So I would come up with something to run the offense through him. He's haven't touched the ball every time unless the lane is wide open and you get a freebie, you run it there. But otherwise, that's number one. Number two, and we saw that happening against the Clippers. Mikal Bridges was a little bit more aggressive. You want him to keep that energy, because eventually he's going to get, because we've seen, listen, he's not a rookie. There's a body of work that you could follow. You could go back to his days in Phoenix and Brooklyn. He could put him up. Okay. So you have him slide in the role of 2A, 2B between him and OG Anunoby, instead of fading in the shadow, like be the fourth option. Have him be Cat be the first option, and then between OG and Mikal Bridges, 2A, 2B. First of all, depending on the matchup and depending on who's got it going on that time, you got to read the game. You got to read what the game is. You got to see who's hot in the game. But again, run it through Cat and then have those two guys, because those two guys can score. Josh Hart's going to do what he does, grab rebound, drive, do his thing, get his, 12, 14, 16 points, keep that going. And then whatever you get from the point guard, aside from distribution in terms of scoring, Campaign, he can get hot, and so can Deuce. All right. But I would like to see Deuce seems a little bit uncomfortable at the point. Again, we've said this many times on the show. He's really like a shooting guard, but in a very small body. So that's why he's like the point guard position. But that's what I would do. I mean, I would again try to run it through Cat and see what we get.
And so would you then, if you're running it through Cat, would you still start Deuce?
It Deuce seemed a little uncomfortable with the starting. Like I would like to see Campaign, because Campaign is more experienced. He's been around the league a little bit longer, so I would want to see what he could do at as the point guard, because we see him running the second unit. I mean, he's done a decent job at it. So listen, we never see him run with the full starting lineup, him replacing Brunson. But, he's run it. Usually Deuce is by his side, because Deuce brings up the ball also when he's on, with Campaign on the court. Because it's almost sometimes they 1-2-2-1. Sometimes Campaign plays like a shooting guard and Deuce brings up the ball, in that second unit. Campaign sometimes the spot up, the guy shooting it, he's spotting up for the shot. So I'd like to see that, but I mean, I don't know if Tibbs is going to do that. He likes Deuce. He already made up his mind. Deuce is going to be the starting point guard, and it's going to be kind of tough changing that.
But I do think if you're running it through Towns, then Deuce can start, because you're not really looking at him to create offense, right? So maybe he brings it up the ball. To me, throwing the ball to the wing is not like he can do that. I'm talking about if you're looking for him to create an advantage, that's something different. But if you're running through Cat and he's bringing it up and just passing it to a wing or passing it into Cat and then run, I mean, yeah, he can do that.
I don't disagree. It's just that I'd like to see what Campaign does. If you started with this, I mean, we just something to see. You know what I'm saying?
But I think but either one, running through Cat, keep McBride in the starting lineup, or start Campaign if you want to do something a bit more traditional in terms of pick and roll and creating advantages.
Yeah.
Geoff, what would you like to see?
Well, one thing I'd like to see is for Mikal and OG to both have a good game at the same time. That would be helpful. It seems like when one of them goes off, the other one is like taking a nap. Like almost, I think I can count on one hand the amount of times that they both just had a really good game at the same time. And it's almost like their skill sets on offense overlap too much. And so you can't, it's really difficult to get both of them involved in the offense at their maximum, I guess. I know that Bridges is a better shooter of tough twos, but still they both love the corners. The things that they're asked to do in this offense for the most part are the same. And so what I'd like to see is kind of differentiate that to kind of I know McCall's shots are inefficient, but he makes them at a high percentage. So I kind of want to see him lean into him from two a little bit more, because I think that if he starts to see some of those shots fall, it'll help his 3-point percentage also. One of the other things I'd like to see is I think we need to have more Josh Hart Cat pick and roll. That combination has been really good all season long. And I think that it helps mitigate some of the weaknesses from those players, because if you have them both in movement and in space, even if you're switching that action, regardless of how you're guarding that action, I feel like it puts both of those players in a strong position to succeed. And if you have guys like Deuce and OG and McCall as the other three players on the floor, you're going to have your spacing really good and get more of those catch and shoot 3-point opportunities that we've been lacking since the All-Star break at the very least. So those are definitely some things that I think that we need to focus on. But Towns has to be I know he's kind of likes to ease into the game for whatever reason, but I think we need to get him as many touches early on as we can, as long as he's healthy. And I don't know, I wonder about the thumb sometimes, but then there are games when I see him shoot the three and it looks just fine. And then there are other games where I'm wondering, yeah, it really looks like it's bothering him. So maybe that's one of the reasons why maybe he tells the coaching staff ahead of time, yeah, my thumb's really sore tonight. I'm not going to be able to take the volume of shot. Or, listening to him and go, I have no idea. But right. I just, because sometimes he just seems overly passive in these last 9 games, especially. And frankly, I don't think the Knicks can win when he's super passive, because we already have, McCall's a passive offensive player. OG has been doing better of late, but for the most part, he's a passive offensive player. Josh Hart is a reluctant offensive player. I mean, he does some things well, but I would say that his style is pretty passive as well. Deuce and Campaign are kind of two guys that aren't afraid to let her rip. They're not always going to make it, but those are two guys. I wish that more of our starters kind of had the mentality of those two guys, because I don't care if Deuce is 0 for 4 or 4 for 5 from 3. He's not afraid to put the next one up. I can promise you that. And Campaign is a lot the same way. He may be 1 for 6, but that's not going to stop him from shooting. And he just really has a good feel for running an offense also. So I definitely think, I don't think Deuce's minutes should go down. I think he should be a 25 to 30 minute rotation piece anyway, in my opinion. But I think I wouldn't mind seeing Cam get 25, 30 minutes, because I don't think we're playing more than 8 guys. If they want to play Tyler Kolek some minutes, I'm okay with that. I don't know how the defense is going to look at that time. I think you kind of have to be careful who you pair him with. I don't really know that a Kolek Cat combo is going to be really good on the defensive end yet. So I think you have to be a little bit cautious with that. But if you're surrounding Kolek with 4 other quality defenders, maybe Mitchell Robinson in the game and OG and McCall and I don't know, Deuce or something like that, then I think you could probably get away with it. There are combinations I think that would work there, but those are some of the things I would like to see.
Do you think you can run an offense with Cat as a hub? You think about Joakim Noah with the Chicago Bulls, even a little bit, with Hartenstein last year on the second unit. There were some times we would use him as a hub to kind of find, create an advantage and find the open guy. Do you think we can do that with Towns?
I think we have to at least try it while Brunson is out. And if it works, then I think it's something you just keep in there. But I don't see how else you're going to, we don't have people who can create their own shot off the dribble consistently on the rest of the roster, period. Like, I don't think there's nobody on that roster that I say, oh, I trust that boy to get his own shot no matter what. Like, Bridges would be close, but I still think he's not aggressive enough. Deuce doesn't do it. Payne isn't really that guy. I mean, he's a good ball handler. He does some things, but he's not great at creating those shots. So it's just not a skill set we have on the team outside of Brunson, and I think that's one of the reasons why teams have been able to key in on what the Knicks are doing and cut down on that spacing, because they know they're not really that big a threat to drive to the bucket.
Yeah, before we get to Lady&TheChef, I think Bridges can do that. I just don't think we've empowered him enough in this offense since he's been here to do it. Like right now, Bridges would be the one bringing the ball up, initiating the offense. He did it for Brooklyn all the time. I'm not saying he was, great in that role but for the little bit of time that we need him to do it, I think he can do it. I think he's the next best guy. I would still keep McBride, in that starting lineup, playing off the ball. I think McBride is at his best off the ball, attacking closeouts if he needs to. Whenever he puts the ball on the floor, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Just like Ajay feels about when Towns puts the ball on the floor, that's how I feel when McBride starts dribbling. I don't know what we're going to get out of this possession. He's at his best off the ball, and I think we haven't. I think Bridges has another level. I don't think he's been unlocked. I mean, we've seen him in Brooklyn being very aggressive, very assertive, pulling up, for last second shots. I just feel like in this offense, I don't know. To me, I just feel like he hasn't been empowered enough in this offense. And I think when Brunson is out, this is the opportunity. Listen, you're going to be the guy. I'm not saying you the guy to take all the shots. I don't need you to turn into a mini Brunson, but I mean, you have free reign now. Create for yourself, create for others, play freely out there. I think he can, I think he can, he can do it. But I think he has to be given that opportunity and be empowered. And, like we talked about earlier, Tibbs is this read and react, guy. The defense is going to tell you what to do. And that is true. That is true. But I still think there are times when, you gotta, listen, we're gonna do these set plays. But listen, no matter what play you run, eventually you have to read the defense to know what option to come out of that play. Eventually, you could start with a pick and roll, you could start with a dribble handle, you could start however you want to start. What you do is going to depend on how the defense, reacts to that. So they do have to do a better job reading that. And then on top of that, you got to knock down the shots you do get. And the Knicks, since the All-Star break, let's go back to this. Since the All-Star break, shooting 44.6% from the field, 30.8% from the three-point line. And some of it may be that they're not getting good shots. I haven't really looked at, there's a metric where you can look at, what's the closest defender, within 2 feet, between 6 feet. Is it wide open, closely contested? Like they do have a stat like that. So it'd be, and I haven't looked at it today. It'd be interesting to see if the Knicks are getting the same quality of shots and they're just not knocking it down. And that happens, right? Where your process is the same and you're just not knocking down shots. But from what I'm seeing from the eye test, the process is different. The process for how they're generating shots is just not, not the same. And in my opinion, it's untenable. Like you're not winning the championship with a Brunson-centric offense. And to Geoff's point, I said the exact same thing, Geoff. This offense looks like last year. Why do we even have better three-point shooting with OG and Bridges and Hart? At least until lately, his three-point shooting had improved. When we're back to running the same offense we ran, last year, which is put the ball in Brunson's hand and let him create for himself and create for others. Anyway, Lady&TheChef, what would you like to see from this team going forward without Brunson that you think would help the offense?
Look, I think you all have brought up great points. Really, really good points. I think a lot of it boils down to, I keep saying the root of it. A big part of the root of it is, yes, we are missing certain players on this roster, on this Knicks team that can create their own, like Geoff kept reiterating. And I agree, the Knicks are missing that. But I do think the reason why somebody like me, I'm not team pro fire Tibbs, but a reason why I say that is because it starts with the coach and it starts with the leadership. And yes, I do agree with you, Ajay, that the players have to go out there and do their own thing. The coach is only one half of it. As a player, you got to go out there and perform and step up and do what you need to do. But there seems to be like, there's a weakness mentality that's come down. The morale seems to come down as of late. I'm looking at body language from guys. I want to see a better concerted effort offensively from this team. Just attacking the basket. You know, you guys say this reminds you of last year's offense of team. This reminds me of, and I was getting triggered when Geoff was mentioning it. This reminds me of when we made it to the playoffs. What was that, 2 years ago? And we went against Miami and we couldn't buy a basket. And I remember Queen was like, yo, we had the shots, but no one could knock them down. When you watch the Knicks, when we played the Warriors, the Knicks were lucky the Warriors were off. That Curry was off, a lot of guys was off. So that's why the game for the most part was close. But the Knicks were off as well. We couldn't knock down a basket. We saw the same thing happen against the Lakers because we don't, to Geoff's point, this team doesn't have guys who could create their own one-on-one, right? So now, again, I think that this is good. It exposes a lot of the weaknesses that we already knew, but sometimes you need to see it without your star player, without the captain there. You need to see that there's a lot of weaknesses and there's some holes there and that you don't have the players who can create their own. We had that problem somewhat to a degree with Randall when we saw him in that playoff series and we was like, yo, Randall was struggling to go one-on-one against guys. It wasn't just the good defense. If you can't go one-on-one in a game of basketball, that's why I love the Unrivaled League. It's 3-on-3. This proves if you got game or not. If you can't do it in a 3-on-3 one-on-one, then you got to go work on your game. So the Knicks don't have that. I would like to see Cam or Kolek running a point guard, bringing the ball up. I agree 100%. I said this before about Deuce. I love Deuce. Deuce is better with catch and shoot. When Deuce had to bring up the ball last season before last, he was so laser focused on bringing the ball up, making sure I bring the ball up, I get it past half court, I run whatever play Tibbs is telling me to do, that took away from him offensively. And it seemed like once he didn't have to do that and worry about bringing the ball up, we saw him last season. This year, shot looks a lot better. He looks a lot more confident. I don't want to see Deuce bringing up the ball, and I agree. I don't want to see him dribbling the ball. I want to see Deuce, if he's going to put the ball on the floor, I want to see him looking to attack the basket. Deuce has incredible speed, and I think he underutilizes it and should be using it a lot more. I think him, Bridges, and Campaign are more than capable. As long as they can make the layup, I'm speaking to Cam specifically, you're going to drive, you got to make the layup. Use your speed and get to the basket and drive. And that's one of the things that I heard you three mention, and it blows my mind with this Knicks team. The Knicks will keep shooting jumpers, shooting threes, shooting jumpers. If they're not going in, you have to drive, attack the basket. This is why offensively, the Knicks are so exposed, even when you have Brunson on the team, because the offense is like, well, I don't even really got to work. These guys are not really moving. They're not really doing anything. They're going to the same two guys. You're not really using a pick and roll. Nobody's really driving. I don't really got to work defensively. You just going to run from here, run to there. I may got to fight through a screen. Bridges is going to hand it off. Josh Hart, and I've heard Clyde say this plenty of times in games, Josh Hart will be at the basket. He will stand. He did it in the Lakers game. He will have his back to the basket and will not turn around, and Clyde will be like, yo, folks, the basket is there. He goes, I don't get that with Josh. Turn around. Josh will take the ball and still look to kick it out, or he'll have the ball, start driving, and he does that stupid midair pass like Randall used to do and wanted to throw it out, and now you're throwing it out of bounds.
Right.
Where is your confidence? Where's your integrity? Go out there with some heart and go and shoot and make the basket. This indecisiveness is like crazy to me. You guys are professionals. Go out there with some more heart. And part of that, this is why I said when I started, I put it on Tibbs to a degree, because you got to go out there and get these guys the mental. A lot of playing sports is mental as well. There seems to be a drop in this team. And I don't know what does it take, but maybe they need a heart-to-heart locker room. I hear Tibbs screaming out plays. He sounds like a bear crying for food. I hear him yelling out something, but sometimes I don't see it correlate on the floor. So I need to see a change. I need to see actual plays being ran, a stronger defense. And this is another thing, going back to Tibbs. You have shooters, Shamit, Bridges, Cat, OG. They're not getting the looks at times. Because I think part of the reason is offensively, I think to a degree you have case in point, Bridges, you have Shamit sometimes. There's indecisiveness. They're not going after theirs. But I think to a degree, and we've had this issue when we had other guys, unless you was like Dante DiVincenzo, who was aggressive, and when you got the ball, you made a move, you got your shot off. When we have players who could shoot under Tibbs, he doesn't utilize those guys who are good shooters. So we saw that even when we had Grimes. You look at Grimes now, he's flourishing. But, and when we had Hartenstein, according to him in his post-game interview, he said Tibbs didn't want him shooting a three. I'm not saying that was his forte, but it was a weapon that he could have used. So I just think that, I don't know, sometimes with Tibbs, and it makes me think of what you guys are saying with Cat. I don't know if it's partly some nights maybe Cat is in a little pain, or I don't know. Maybe some nights Tibbs is reading and say, I don't want you shooting all those threes. I don't know what it is or what's the deal with that, but I just need to see like changes being made starting from the leadership, because then it trickles down. And just because you're not the captain doesn't mean that Cam, you can't run the pick and roll. That Deuce, you can't run. Josh Hart, you can't run it as well. Like it just seems like the identity is lost. And the Knicks seem to have ran away from what was working pre-All-Star. Again, this is before Brunson got injured. It just seemed to have been on a decline. And if the Knicks keep it up, you're going to end up like Dallas with 7 players trying to figure out who do you put in the game. You don't have anybody to put in the game because Tibbs would rather stick with the same 5 or 6 guys. But I would like to see either Cam or Bridges and then Deuce. Or I'd rather put Deuce last, but Cam, Mikal, or Deuce bringing up the ball. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with the offense. I know I thought to start the season that the Knicks had a championship offense. Wasn't optimized yet. Still felt they needed to get better at recognizing what teams were giving them. But that was a championship offense. Defense wasn't, right? But I was really hoping the defense would trend, over time. But now I feel like we don't have a championship offense or a championship defense. Though I will say, though, the defense has been better as of late. Like the effort has been better. It hasn't been a lot of like wide open shots consistently. Anyway, the defense of the Clippers was good. I thought the defense with the Lakers were okay. The Knicks have been doing much better. 14th ranked defense right now. I haven't looked at 3-point against yet, but I think the defense is better, but this offense is not optimized to say the least, and you got to put players in the best position, and that hasn't been the case. All right, let me just get to the chat really quick. East Blue Drew, is Cat a creator? This is when we were talking about running the offense through him. That's a good point, and to Geoff's point, let's see. Let's see if we make him a hub. Let's see what happens. Rick James, we need a perimeter creator along with Cat. Yeah. Yeah. Um, and we had a super chat as well. Let me get to that. LD, appreciate the super chat. We will look back and wonder why Steve Kolick isn't playing more. A pass first point guard is the best thing for a team with no shot creators. 10 assists easy is what he was trying to.
Assists per game, I think.
Oh, okay. 10 assists per game. Yeah, I mean, but he giveth and he taketh away as well, right? So that's what you got to worry about in terms of what he does on the offensive end and on the defensive end. So to Jeff's point, who can you put with him to help mitigate that? Rick James, Cat is not good at getting position down low though.
I still want
I
him
mean,
to have touches. I don't care if they're in the post or in the I
right.
don't think I think we go like 4 or 5, 6 possessions in a row where he doesn't even touch the ball. And that should never happen. Like, in my opinion, first pass should be to Towns like 80% of the time. And if it's not, it's because you're bringing him up to do a pick and roll with them. Like, the guy is one of the most incredibly gifted offensive players in the league. He's like a 50, 40, 80 guy. I mean, get him some shots.
And he's not a terrible passer either. When he doesn't have the shot, he could find an open man or the cutter.
Yeah. LD, we had the easiest schedule in the NBA pre-All-Star. I hear you, but to me, there is a difference between your process. So, in other words, you can run the same offense pre-All-Star, the same offense post-All-Star break, and because you're playing tougher teams and they're rotating more, your field goal percentage is down. I get it. You know, it's not the same offense though. It's just not the same offense. This is like a change in the scheme from running through Cat or Cat being featured more through Brunson going one on one. And I'm having a hard time believing that change was due to the schedule. Like we're playing a harder schedule, so we're just going to put the ball in Brunson's hand and let him create because of the schedule. I'm having a hard time with that. It's possible, but I just think there's something else um, going on. Offense don't win championship. I don't care about that. But it's the other way around too, Keith Turner. It's the other way around too. Like this whole old adage that defense wins championship, I just think that's outdated. I'm not saying that you play no defense, but look at the Knicks now. In the last 9 games, they have a 14th ranked defense, a 28th ranked offense, and their net rating is negative 7.5. So if the offense continues to be Brunson centric, you can have the number 1 defense. You're not winning the championship. So I think there needs to be some balance between your offense and your defense. So this idea, I don't care about the offense as long as we have a number 1 defense. Look at the Knicks a few years ago when we played Atlanta, the first time we went to the playoffs. We had a top 5 defense. We couldn't score the ball. Couldn't score the ball at all. The offense was basically just Randall. We didn't have anybody else, to Lady&TheChef's point, that can create their own shot. We wound up overusing Derrick Rose because he was the only one that created his own shot, to the point that he couldn't even play Game 6. We overused him so much. So this idea that just have a great defense and the offense doesn't matter, not in today's NBA. Your offense has to be functional, particularly the deeper you go into the playoffs, because they're going to take advantage of your weakness. Right? Now, you can't have a top-ranked offense and a bottom 10 defense either, right? I mean, I get that point, but there needs to be some sort of balance. The Knicks offense was elite and historic, right? I don't mind giving up a little bit of that to bring the defense up. But if we think we're going in there with a top 5 defense and just running this offense strictly through Brunson, hopefully we get past the first round.
Hopefully Brunson gets back in time to do that.
It's not going to be enough. It's just not.
It's gonna be like the bubble year, gentlemen sweep, like Atlanta did to us. You know, it's
Yeah. All right. So we pretty much talked about the offense and Brunson's injury together. In terms of what are we gonna do in his absence? The Knicks have had 2 games off to. I'm not sure if they went through full practices, but I'm sure they went through some, walkthroughs. So we'll get an opportunity to see the changes um, tonight. If there's changes to the starting lineup or changes to the offense, and we'll see that. We'll see that tonight. Um, I'm curious. We signed PJ Tucker to just a 10-day contract, right? So the Knicks still have an open roster spot that they can still sign someone to. How significant is that signing to you, if at all? Is that just a locker room signing? Do you think he's a rotation? He'll be in the rotation. What's your thoughts? Lady&TheChef, we'll start with you, then Geoff, Ajay.
I'm 50-50 on that, because I don't want to sit up here and say, oh, it's a bad signing. As Knicks fans, sometimes we do that. Players come here and then we're like, oh, wow, look at what he could do. Look at what he's bringing to the table. So I don't want to say that, but I don't know. I still have my full trust in the front office, right? I think we're going through the growing pains, and the Knicks are still moving in the right direction. I just think that I don't want to see them faulting because of whatever waiting period caused the domino effect to now we have to go with whatever crumbs are left at the end of the bucket of who's available and who you could take. And, I said this a while ago. I was saying this on the show where the domino effect to me came from when they were trying to hold on to sign Isaiah Hartenstein, and that created somewhat of an after effect. And then they had to hurry up and get Cat, and he came fresh off a plane and was in a practice. And I think that kind of held up maybe other potential moves or players we could have brought here. But I don't know. I don't know with PJ if, I know he's been around in the league and on a lot of teams. I've seen what he can do. He has experience, but I always say this: is Tibbs gonna play him? Are you utilizing him to be a vocal leader and check guys and let them know if he can bring that better experience? That's what they were trying to do with Taj, but I don't know. I don't know if that's a good signing. I guess he can bring some energy there. To me, you already have that in Campaign. I know they're not the same players, but I do like Campaign's experience and energy that he has, and his attitude in games, and the spirit that he likes, the positive energy he likes to bring to other players. So I really don't know. It's hard for me to read.
Ajay?
When we're talking about Tom Thibodeau, I wouldn't be surprised if he plays him, if he finds a spot for him in the rotation. I mean, this guy, he's a very good defensive player. He can shoot the three, the corner three. He could shoot it, and he's a tough guy. He's a lot of what Tom Thibodeau like in a player. He has a lot of those attributes. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tom Thibodeau finds some minutes for him, especially with Jalen Brunson out. And, you need people to fill in, to put on the floor.
Wow.
So, yeah.
He hasn't played all season, by the way.
Yeah, that's fine. Taj, Taj didn't play all season, and then he got called up, and Tom Thibodeau threw him right in there. The only exercise Taj was doing is running across the Brooklyn Bridge,
which is a feat in itself.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, you're right about that. That's no easy feat.
Geoff, your thoughts on the signing?
Well, a 10-day contract is a 10-day contract. I mean, that just tells you all that you need to know. I mean, he's 38 years old. He didn't play he hadn't played a minute this year. He only played 31 games or something like that last year, and limited minutes. I mean, I think it's dog track time for PJ.
Yeah.
If he had gas left in the tank, he would have signed to a veteran deal with somebody long before coming to the Knicks. Now, is it possible that we hit lightning in a bottle and he comes in and has a couple of nice moments for us? I guess. I don't see him cracking the rotation, though. Tibbs doesn't like to play more than 9 guys anyway, and whose minutes are you giving him at this point? I don't think he's going to take Landry Shamit's minutes. I don't think he's going to take minutes away from Deuce McBride. I don't think he's going to take minutes. So, could he earn himself a spot by being a good practice player and be here in the postseason roster if we get to an Alec Burks, we don't have anybody else left situation and put him in the game? Yeah, but I'm not going to sit here and hold my breath that a 10-day contract player is some kind of savior, because he's just not. And that's not to belittle Tucker, but I just think his best days are behind him. I mean, he's 38 years old. You get what you pay for.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a locker room guy. And that's not a bad thing. When Denver won the championship, DeAndre Jordan was, on that bench. Green was on that bench. And they talked about how integral those two guys who rarely played were to their championship, right? So I'm okay with it. I don't anticipate him being in the roster. I see him more as a locker room guy. And those guys are important. Locker rooms guys are important. Guys who understand the mentality. If you've ever been in a basketball locker room when, things are not going right, that leader will stop and say, hey, let's keep it where it's at. It's important that we focus. It's important that, maybe he's a guy who can do that. I'm not saying the Knicks need that, but the more positive voices you have in the locker room who've been around, who understand the ups and downs of an NBA season, particularly now, the Knicks are on their way, their championship window is open. This is another level for all of those guys. This is another level for Brunson. This is another level for Bridges and Hart. They haven't gone down this road before, as far as I know. Somebody correct me, if I'm wrong. So, having guys who've been there that can help you in the playoffs, get your mind right and keep your mind right, I think that's important, but I don't see him as a rotation guy. I see him as a locker room.
And to your point, he's a former NBA champion, which is something nobody else on this team understands. When you get to the top of the mountain, you understand what it takes to win. And sometimes having a voice that can elucidate some of those things. Look, this is what you need to do to be a champion. When it comes from someone who's actually been there, it carries a lot more weight than from somebody else. And I think he's on the 2021 title team. So he does have one to his credit.
Right. Looking ahead, we play Sacramento tonight. We beat them the first time in the Garden. Let me see what that score was. I wrote it down here. 143 to 120. Knicks were playing a different offense at that time. And of course, Jalen Brunson was playing. Sacramento is 33-30 right now. They're 6-4 over their last 10. They lost their last game. Unless something has changed, when I last checked, Sabonis and Monk were out, of this game. Then we play Portland. We have 3 games left on this West Coast trip. Sacramento is in 9th place, by the way. Then we play Portland, who's in 12th place. They're 28-37, 5-5 over their last 10. They've lost 3 in a row. And then Golden State, who's 6th in the Western Conference, 26-28, 9-1 over their last 10. They won 4 straight. One of them, I believe, was against us, one of those 4, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously they have Jimmy Butler on the team, and listen, I remember when we were talking about Jimmy Butler for the Knicks. Not that the Knicks had an opportunity to get him. I'm talking about this season, and I was like, nah, I'm not. So I don't like Jimmy Butler only because of I just didn't like how when he gets dissatisfied, like he really makes it uncomfortable, until you move him. But strictly basketball speaking, man, yeah, he would definitely have helped us. I don't know how the Knicks could have gotten him, but yeah, but that's neither here or there. What are you looking for over the next 3 games, particularly tonight, Geoff?
Well, we gotta see who's healthy. Like, how does Towns look? How do is Mitch gonna play? Is he? How many minutes can he play? I think we have a real opportunity with Sabonis out to, and Malik Monk is always a Nick killer. So, but then again, they have Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, who when they were in Chicago always used to give the Knicks fits. So, nothing comes easy for this team, but hopefully, I think it's critical just with the way we've been kind of blowing games lately that we get this win tonight and kind of able to pivot a little bit, get a little confidence, because Portland's not going to be an easy game. I know they don't have a great record, but they've got a really fun young team over there. And if you go up there and sleep on them, they will beat you. They're a lot better than they were early in the year, even though they're on a 3-game slide right now. And, the Warriors showed the other night that they'll give you the business. I mean, Jimmy Butler was the perfect addition for them. That's kind of like they got Klay Thompson back, from a couple of years ago when they made a run. They're dangerous. I don't think they're, I think the Lakers and Oklahoma City are still a cut above, but nobody, if they're a 6 or a 5 seed, I think you probably take them to win that series in a lot of cases. Probably not over Denver either, because Jokic is so good, but you'd have to think they're going to be real competitive with the team they have on the floor. So we could find a way to go 2-1. I think that would be a huge success, but every game, take them one at a time, because the way we've struggled lately, it just, we just need to find a way to get more points than the other guy on this first one, and then worry about the rest later.
And Geoff, without Brunson, every game is going to be tough. I don't care who we playing. I don't care what their record is. I don't know. I don't care where their place is, where their standing is in the Eastern or Western Conference. Without Jalen Brunson, it's going to be tough for us, particularly of late when our offense has been so Brunson centric, right? So now we got to try to find this new identity, this new way, of scoring. Hopefully our defense maintains. I've liked our defense over the past 9 games, even when Mitchell Robinson is not in the game. I like the way our offenses look.
I think when you Brunson tries hard defensively, but when you can replace a net negative defender, let's just be honest about it, with someone who's a definite positive. I mean, Deuce is a great defender. Let's on the ball, especially. He does it, and he's a really good help defender as well. So when you replace that, that's a lot of minutes of much better defense, and so I think the defense
before that, though, Geoff.
Yeah,
it was
I
trending
agree.
before Brunson left, because Brunson has only missed 1 game.
Right. I'm just saying that I think that the level of the defense can jump up another level, is what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
I think they were playing better before, but like if you look at the points per 100 possessions, it's almost identical. So it's like, in fact, I think in the slide you showed, it wasn't any different.
It was. It just ranked differently based on what the other teams were doing.
What the other teams are doing.
Correct.
But I actually think with the lineup where Brunson is out entirely, our scoring is definitely going to go down considerably, but I think our ability to get stops will ratchet up also, hopefully, because that's going to be how we're going to win games, because we're going to struggle to get points. I think you'll see games in the 90s like it's the 90s.
Which was the Clipper game, right?
Yeah.
Ajay, what are you looking to see over the next 3 games, particularly tonight?
I'm looking to see Karl-Anthony Towns have monster games. I really want him to take the mental and say, you know what, put the team on his back, and you're 1B, or you're the second best player on the team, or the best player on the team, whichever way you look at it. Put the team on your back, man. Tonight, put the team on your back, and when we play Golden State Warriors, take it personal. Y'all know what I'm talking about with this Draymond Green nonsense. Take it personal, and a little elbow check wouldn't be bad either. just don't get ejected, because we need you to go 40 and up.
Let's not the elbow check, boss. This isn't 1994. You can't be doing
man.
we need him in the game. Like, we don't want to get foul. Let's was ejected for an elbow on Draymond Green.
A little time travel. If you do it slick enough, the refs will be like, you don't walk up to him and elbow, but you coming down with a rebound, like, yeah, that's for talking that mess.
Yeah. We'll call it chicken wing stop.
A chicken wing, exactly. Yeah, but I'm definitely looking for Cat to take over. And like I think Geoff said, you want to see OG and Mikal Bridges have a good game in the same game, in the same space. So we have enough. We have enough to beat those teams. So let's just employ what we have and make it happen.
Lady&TheChef.
Yeah, I'm looking for the Knicks to get back in the winning column, right? I think that the Knicks have to get back into the winning column, winning some games. I think out of these next 3 games for this week, I'm gonna have the Knicks at 2-1. I'm looking for revenge against the Warriors. They should beat the Kings tonight. They don't have Sabonis and Monk, like you mentioned, and the Trailblazers, but I'm not sure if one of those games are going to be a trap game. And also, the Knicks have to figure out how to close out the fourth quarter is a lot stronger. These games that they've lost, they've got out like taking a beating in the fourth quarters. So we went from being clutch in the fourth and doing well when we were winning those games before we went on this road trip. And now the Knicks haven't figured out how to, and it's happened throughout the season as well, but they've had moments where the Knicks have to figure out how to not come out sluggish in the third quarter. Sometimes the second half, it gets the betterment of this team, and we don't have a good third quarter. I don't know if guys just need 5 more minutes on the clock for the halftime. They still trying to catch their breath. I don't know what it is, but the third quarters sometimes they kill us, and then the fourth quarter, the Knicks dig themselves so deep into a hole they can't get out of it. They're playing catch up, and I agree with Ajay. I want to see not just Cat put the team on his back, but OG and Bridges, as Geoff also alluded to earlier. You got to wake up from this nap. You got to wake up. Stop playing on the sidelines. Stop playing background singers and come to the forefront. Beyonce's out. That's Jalen Brunson, Kelly, Michelle. It's room for all of us now. Go up and step up to the plate. Get your game on. Deuce, get out there and do what you need to do. I don't want to see guys playing, hesitant, being indecisive. Go out there and be gritty, be tough. That energy that we saw last year from the Knicks when they were rolling with, last year's squad and they were doing what they needed to do with all those injuries, the Knicks need to act like that. Act like you have a severe man down situation on this team, and guys need to just play at a better level, play at a higher level. I just feel like, the intensity's not there. Sometimes even the first quarter, we have sluggish first quarter starts. So, and then it makes you wonder too, because you look at the last 3 games, those first quarters, who was keeping us in the game the first quarter? Brunson. If he wasn't making those baskets, I'm like, well, who's scoring? So tonight I'm really going to be looking to see, well, who steps up to the plate and says, okay, I don't want to see guys just passing the ball. This is not practice. You got to come out and make your mark and impose your will. So we'll see what happens tonight.
Yeah. A few things. I'm looking to see what are the Knicks doing offensively. What have they practiced the past 2 games to try to mitigate Brunson's absence? Have they made change to the starting lineup? Have they made schematic changes offensively? Like what are they doing? Yeah, I agree. Players have to step up. Players have to shoot better. But how are we getting them those shots? Are we passing the ball? Are we moving our bodies? Are we making it difficult to guard? Like, have we cooked up and came up with anything to help Towns be the best version of himself? Bridges be the best version of him. So I'm really looking for process stuff. And yeah, I mean, obviously, players, when you're put in better positions, you still have to knock it down, right? So I'm interested in that. I'm interested in the defense. You know, is that going to be better? You know, and are we going to get better shooting? Particularly, Miles McBride hasn't been. He's not the only one, but the Lakers 2 for 13, the Clippers 0 for 6, Golden State 2 for 7, Miami 4 for 10. And he said it himself, that he knows he has to, he has to be better and he has to shoot better. Hopefully he does that. The offense is just not great right now, so we need him. We need Bridges, who, I believe was okay in the Clippers game. When you do get those looks, knock them down, right? So both knock down the opportunities you get, but what's the process? What's the scheme to get these guys in a better position? Are we running it through Cat? I'm interested. Are we going to use Cat as a hub? We're going to run it through him? Are we starting campaign because, we feel he's better? Are we putting the ball in Bridges' hands and playing McBride off the ball? What are we doing to mitigate Brunson's absence? I'm really interested. I'm really interested in that, and we shall see. Anything else before we get out of here? Anything you want to add? And if not, any last words?
Well, it's good to be back. Salute to the chat. We don't have a show without you. Salute to Sim, the Podfather, for making this all possible, so we can be up here in front of you. Lady and the Chef is always a great pleasure. You always make me think better about the game. And Ajay and Queen, you already know.
Yeah. Anybody else? Last words, Lady and Chef. You want to let the chat know and those watching and the replay game where they can find you?
Yeah, check us out on Two Knicks Chicks. It's all together. It's under my name. So I'm very grateful to be a panel member here every Monday on the Queen's Court. But you can check out me and my mom. We are Two Knicks Chicks, and we discuss all things New York Knicks and the New York Liberty. So that'll be coming up soon with the WNBA season arriving. Lots to dig into there. But you can catch us. We usually go on every Sunday around 12, and then on Thursdays at 7 p.m. So check us out.
Oh, so it's 12 now. All right.
Yeah,
Because
usually.
I was thinking about doing a 10 o'clock. I'm like, oh, it's so tight because I know they come on at 11. So if you guys are going 12, that's cool.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, you're gonna go on do a recap on Sundays?
I'm thinking about, because we only have one show on the channel right now on Thursdays. So I'm thinking about, what I can do, doing something else and when. And I was thinking Sunday morning. We'll see. Ajay, you want to?
Well, Queen, always a pleasure to be hanging out with you guys. But I'm sure you guys know by now. You could catch Geoff, Queen, Geoff, and myself, and whenever Lady wants to show up, over on Dope Soul Sports Talk, along with Jarrell, a delusional Knicks fan, Jay Boogie sometimes. Whoever else wants to show up, you're always welcome over on Dope Soul Sports Talk on Thursdays when the Knicks don't play, which there are very few Thursday games this season, thank God. And we usually come on at 9 o'clock. So after Two Knicks Chick, 7:30, 9 o'clock, you switch over to
got your whole night planned out. You
whole
don't
night
even have
planned
to
out,
leave the
man.
couch.
Yep.
Right.
So yeah. And looking forward to seeing everybody there.
Yeah. Geoff, Ajay, Lady and the Chef, I appreciate you. Shout out to Tony Crowe, who couldn't make it today. And definitely shout out to Simeon Russell, the creator of the channel. Appreciate you for the platform. And you can catch me as Ajay said, me, Geoff, Ajay, Jarrell. I'm not gonna repeat everybody as Ajay said. Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Dope Soul Sports Talk. I'm thinking about changing my name of the channel up a little bit. Let me know what y'all think about that. But anyway, I appreciate you all. The next play tonight is it 10 or 10:30?
Man,
10:30.
you call that tomorrow morning, but yeah. I,
About an hour they come on.
Shout out to the chat, by the way. JM3000, Nick Yak, Knicks 100 of GM, Lonnie Meeks, A Train in the house. I see you, sis. Rick James. Um, who else? Camberry, Eddie Kofi stopped by. Humberto de la Haas. I hope I got that right. I appreciate you. LD, appreciate you in the super chat. Donald Cannon, Keith Turner, always in the house. I appreciate you. Real King on Dios NYK. Thank you. Always supporting NBK, Dope Soul, and the other Nick creators. I see you whenever I'm tuning in to various podcasts on YouTube, employing people to hit that like button. It helps. It definitely helps. East Blue Drew in the house. Appreciate you always rocking with us. Kareem Grant, I missed you sneaking in the beginning. Young On, I appreciate you. And who is that in green? Is that Deron Wayne? I think that's Deron Wayne or Darren Rain. It's in green. I can't really see it. Nostalgic Nick. Kerry Cox snuck in the house. I appreciate you as well. Andrew Decatus. All right. If I missed anybody, my apologies. Until next time, family.